Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on This Is the Day. My name is Medrin Nyambura. We are so glad you've made the time. Today we have a fantastic guest. I can assure you of a good time. Wycliffe Osoro, a HR consultant. And what you're tackling today is being an intern in this country and what that means. What's your intern story? That's the first question to our guest. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Medrin. It's always a pleasure to be on This Is the Day.
Thank you as well.
You asked me about my internship experience, and I was trying to really go dig back into the archives because...
Stop saying it. Your age does not show. But go ahead. Yes.
So I think the first internship that I did was in about 2002. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was still in the University of Nairobi.
Okay.
And then after I finished, I also did a bit of internship before I then got my formal permanent employment. Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting. The first internship experience I had was in a parastatal, so government institution, and
yes.
It was in a finance department, so I got really busy. Mm-hmm. It was a very great experience, and it taught me one thing about internship, is that use internship to also determine what you want to do in your life.
Okay.
So I had the experience of working in a finance department, and then I realized that it is not my cup of tea, and I was very happy to have had that experience, so I moved on and knew that my career was not in that line.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yours is the nice story.
Yes.
Were you paid?
During that time, no. Unfortunately, I was not being paid. So I think the internship experience is not just about the money.
Okay.
Especially when you're in university and you're doing that as part of your credits, sort of, it's a unit in the university calendar. You do not require to be paid. But it's good practice to sort of pay the interns, especially if then required to move from one place to another. So probably a transport stipend rather than necessarily a pay, but it depends at what point.
Okay.
So if it's internship that's after the university and as someone is almost getting to do to start getting into the job market, then it does pay to pay the interns.
Okay.
Yes.
Now everybody's wishing you were their HR when they were interns. But then what would you say, you've of course mentioned there's a skill set that you get and the experience before you get to the job market. Yes. But why do an internship? Why bother?
Okay, so an internship gives you the experience that you require for the job market. When you're studying in school, it's very different from being at the workplace. Mm-hmm. So it gives you the opportunity to start applying the things that you've learned in school. It also gives you the opportunity to interact with other employees in the workplace. So if you look at the professional line that you're studying in, you get to interact with people who are in your line. So you get to understand what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Like for example, when I told you I worked in a finance department doing my internship, I knew what the finance officers were doing. I got to understand how to do your bank reconciliations, how to prepare for payments, how to do post entries into journals and all that. So I was able to understand what it is I was learning in accounting in school and see it practically in the workplace. Okay. And then you get to see the differences about what you've learned and when you're applying it into practice in different organizations, because different organizations have different systems. But the other thing that you learn in internship is to interact with your fellow employees. So that is one thing that is really important. How are you able to build networks with the people that you work with? Especially because these are the people who may give you the opportunity for paid employment later on in life, either within the organization or they may like the way you work and may get you an opportunity with their peers in other organizations. That's true. So it's important for you to have that work experience. Even the simple thing about waking up in the morning to go to work and that practice of ensuring that and the discipline of ensuring that you're at work on time, that you stay through the whole day, you respect the breaks, and you leave work at a certain time. That discipline is not something you will get in school, because in school sometimes your timetables are very different. Yes. So when you go to the workplace and you're an intern, you get to learn a lot of those things. You get to learn how to communicate. You just get the exposure. There's a whole world of opportunity when you go through the internship programs.
You know how the med students will do a residency? I feel like everybody needs that. Where you have a whole year where you just work at a proper work environment. There's something you've said, building your network.
Yes.
And most of the times we get that wrong, even from my personal experience. Where I did my internship, there was a lot of opportunity and others got to exploit it. Yes. So why don't interns see the opportunity, because an intern will say, I'm not going to work here. It's just an internship. I need my credit. But just emphasize on the importance of building your network.
Okay. You see, the thing is, one is a lot of employers use internship as the gateway to employment within their organizations.
Okay.
So when the intern is within the workplace, they get to interact with different managers, different colleagues, and work in projects with them or do certain assignments with those employees. What then happens is you ensure that you start getting to know these people, getting to know what it is to do their jobs, just have conversation that's not necessarily about work, that you get to understand these individuals. Then they also open up to them about what it is that you're interested in, because that way people get to understand who you are as an intern, as a person, not just as this intern who comes in for 3 months and needs to go. And then later on, when you're looking for employment, the first place that you will start is with the networks of the people that you worked with.
Yeah.
So you'll call them up and tell them, okay, I'm now through with my school. Is there any opportunity there, or is there any opportunity where you have friends in different companies or organizations? Yes.
Okay, and that's what now we call networking, as opposed to hook me up with a job.
Yes,
that's networking. Okay. Yes. Also, now we've talked about the internship that you do either for credit in campus or after campus to get into employment.
Yes.
But I'm also thinking of somebody who's completed their Form 4. They don't have money to transition to campus or college. Can they do an internship as well?
I think internship, by its definition, is really, remember, you're studying something and you want to get necessary skills.
Okay.
Back in the days, there was something called apprenticeship or apprenticeship, depending on how you'd like to pronounce it. What it then meant is that this person would come and then start learning a skill. So, and the background was that, say, the people who are the carpenters, the electricians, and all those, where it's your hands are being used in terms of the skills. You'd go then land under an instructor who will then show you the ropes in that line of profession, and then at the end of it, you'd then work for him for a certain period that you've agreed.
Yes.
So then it made sense that if you're straight out of school and you want to get to do something where you practically are using your hands in a certain skill, then you can develop that.
Okay.
But for the other types of internship, you need to have some sort of learning that you're going to then experience in the workplace. So I wouldn't say that you'd have an intern who's fresh out of Form 4, but an intern who's studied something that's a post-secondary qualification, then it does then make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a difference between a part-time job and internship.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking of the parents who'll have Form 4 students after this month.
Yes.
And sometimes maybe you need a plan. You had that experience. You've shared that before, where you worked for somebody, and it helped, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a family business, so I was able to work. But I mean, you may have relatives who have businesses. Offer to work for the experience.
Okay.
It's not necessarily for the pay, rather than sit at home. In fact, a lot of times I've been in organizations that have paid internships. I've been in organizations that don't have paid internships. And I usually see the struggle with people saying that I'm not going to do it because it doesn't pay me anything. But the value that you get out of the internship, that exposure, you cannot place a value to it.
Okay.
And it's great to get paid to get that value.
Yes.
But if it doesn't come, then it's fine. People offer themselves to work for free as they get to learn a skill, because you cannot place a value to the experience that you're going to get.
Okay, that's for the I generation, when you're wanamaliza shule. But also let's talk about just some of the experiences people have. And I was talking to this lady, she's a labor lawyer. She fights, for labor laws. And she was talking about 80% of internships go well. You might transition into work, you might not. There's a 20% that goes horribly wrong, and the main challenge is just your JD. What's your job description? Okay. So when you're going into a position, there are people who say they've served tea, and that's all they did for about 2 months before they were given anything or a desk.
Okay.
So some of the experiences people go through from your experience as a HR.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think internships, people can write all sorts of stories. I mean, through their own experience, through experience that some of us have seen with interns who've worked under us, Some of it, I think the first place to start is when you're taking up an intern, you need to know what it is that you want to pass on to them in terms of experience and how it connects to what they've learned.
Okay.
So you need to have a clear program. Internships usually last for 3 months. What is it that you want to have passed on, and what benefit do you want to gain from the intern? Because that's one thing that a lot of people don't look at, that you're actually getting value from the intern who's joining the organization. Like you said, the Generation X, the millennials, they have a certain way of thinking that is totally different from your regular employee. So you need to leverage on that and get to understand what it is that you're doing right in the organization or not. If you're in an organization that needs to communicate to that type of audience, they'll really help you, because they'll know this is what you need to say, this is what connects with us. They'll come into projects and advise on this communication is going to work with us, it's not going to work with us. So the interns also bring value to the organization. So you then see what is it that you want to impart to the intern, and what is the value that you're going to bring back to the organization.
Okay.
So it's important to then have like sort of the job description that you're talking about for the intern. And it's important to say what are the things that you want them to have achieved.
Okay.
If it's coming through the school, for sure it is going to be tracked, because the lecturer, the faculty will visit, they'll want to know what it is that they've learned, what is the attitude of the student, how have they helped in the organization. So it's that one is well guided. But in terms of experiences, I have seen interns who come into organizations, and organizations want to utilize them as that extra hand that is going to do the paperwork, filing, do the serving of tea, deliver the letters, and do some of those things. It's not absolutely wrong to do that, because in that is part of someone's task.
Yes.
That needs
That
to be
is
done.
somebody's job.
But what matters is how you take advantage of that. Because if I take advantage of, I'm the one who serves you the tea, and I come and I pull a conversation with you, and I get to understand what it is that you're doing, and I ask and I offer to help, I see you're struggling with this filing, can I do it? I see, that becomes an opener. So it's really having an open mind and saying, this is what I'm being asked to do, but what am I learning from it?
Okay.
The simple example, like anyone who works in HR, I always say, if you're going to be an intern in HR and you're not going to do the filing, then you have nothing to do with HR, because you won't understand. And when you're doing the filing is not just filing. It's getting to understand what is written in an employment letter. How is it structured? If you're writing a discipline, a warning letter, what are the things that you put in the letter? What are the things that are in an employee file? How do you structure that? So at the end of the day, no one is going to give you that opportunity if you expect that you're going to
do the payroll.
And so there's a lot of things that you can do, even from those tasks that seem mundane, but they will actually help you understand the organization more.
Okay.
Because if say you're a HR professional who has not understood the basics of HR, then you're not going to be able to work in HR, because at the end of the day, you don't even know what is in an employment file. You don't know what the law requires for you to keep, and for how long are you supposed to keep some of those documents. Okay. So it's important for that to then happen.
Okay. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, serving tea, one can look at it as a bad thing. But one of the best broadcasters we have in this country started with serving tea. So instead of complaining, use that.
Yes.
And go to the manager's office. These are such good tips. Yes. Should an intern speak out in a situation whereby there are companies that will use the reverse model? So they don't give you a JD.
Yes.
They let you roam around for a few days to see whether you're proactive with your ideas. So if in that situation, what do you do?
Get proactive, like you said. Find out. You see, at the end of the day, when you're going into an organization, you want to learn. And one of the things about learning is just getting to know what it is that the organization does. A lot of organizations, they either give you a computer that has the intranet on the organization. Read about the organization. Find out what are the products that they offer, what are the services that they offer. Read about that. Study the people who come in. What is it that they're doing? They're going in for meetings. What are the meetings about? There's so much that you can do. Okay. But then, like I said, there's things that are not right that need to be corrected in terms of if you're taking interns, then you need to know what it is that they're going to do. Okay. And some of these long-term internships, because it depends. If it's a 3 months internship, then it's very hard to put them on specific projects, but
Yes.
it is also possible depending on the nature of the projects that you have in your organization. But if it is a longer term, say 6 months to 1 year internship, you should be able to put a tangible project that you're going to place the intern on,
Okay.
and then measure them as the days go by.
And they need to know that, the people who are coming in
Exactly.
to do the job.
They need to know that.
Okay, this is like the intern series that you're having, but you'll have Kim Walker-Smith with the song I Know. If you have any questions to 0316, you can text that or WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. Either if you're an intern or you have a child who could be an intern, or you're the decision maker at your company, send in your questions and Wycliffe will address them. We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. Talking about being an intern, I can see a couple of questions. We'll get to that in a few. But I'm with a HR consultant, Wycliffe Osoro, now officially a friend to the family. You're one of us.
Yes.
But let's talk about how we get interns. How do you get interns?
No, I think for us, where I am currently, we then receive applications. Some of them come in through an email address that we have put in the organization. Some of them come in through employees. They come in through people who are friends to our employees. So there's different ways in which we receive those applications.
Okay.
But one thing that I say is once you receive the applications, it is important to take the interns through a formal recruitment process, because
Okay.
you actually give them the opportunity to also experience that. So you don't just pick the intern and then put them into the role. So give them the opportunity of going through an interview for them to also experience how that feels, because it's also part of work experience. And then after you have taken them through the interview process, you're also able to understand what are their strengths and where to place them so that you can be able to get the best out of them during their internship.
Okay.
I have had experience where I've had interns who have come to work under me who totally, for example, did not have the computer literacy. And you're taking up an intern who's going to work on a computer program, say an applicant management tracking software.
What year is this?
This was in about 2011, 2012.
What? Okay.
Yes. So what happens is, I think it's, in fact, we had to separate because the entire job required the intern to work on the system. They were struggling to even power on the computer.
Okay.
So you've not even crossed beyond understanding what Windows is. And so this is a totally different system. It's not your Microsoft Word or Outlook or Excel.
Yes.
But it's a totally different system. And all the work that you do is going to be on the system. So then
There's no,
in as much as we would want to give you the experience, you will not be able to get the experience.
Okay.
So it helps to actually take them through the interview process for
That
their
goes to-
experience and
yes.
also to get the right fit.
Sorry to cut you off. I was saying that goes back to what you say, that an internship means that you have actually been trained for the job.
Exactly.
Because then the organization is not coming in to train you.
Yes, there's two ways to look at it. So you can be trained because there's some sort of like either you're running a boot camp type of thing where you select the people who have a certain aptitude, certain background, then come and train them on the job.
Okay.
So there's a training and there's an internship. So there's those ones where you can say it's an attachment training, or where you're taking them through training to learn a specific role.
Yes.
Then that is fine. Someone can come, but you need to get someone with the right aptitude and attitude to learn.
Okay.
Then there's others where you're saying, this is what you're learning, then come and apply it. So I think around the discussion where we're talking about half-baked graduates and
Yes,
whatever,
yes.
when you need to, what you've learned, see how you can apply it in the workplace. So you connect the two.
Okay.
Yes.
I hear you. Which also leads me to the question, do schools prepare people for internship?
I believe they do now,
Yes.
because internship is actually a unit in school, so it's totally different. From the time when I was in university, we did not have to do internship. It was not mandatory.
Okay.
So you could go through your 4 years of school and without having ever done internship.
And you'll still graduate?
Yes, you will still graduate
Okay.
because it was not a core unit. But now the internship is very important and it's part of the units that you have to do before you graduate. So I believe the universities then do prepare them the same way they prepare them for the workplace.
Okay.
But this is probably through clubs, through forums that they set up. But one of the things, even looking at, I've worked for organizations where we've held career fairs in the universities. So the career fairs give us an opportunity to go and speak to the students and get them to see a glimpse of what it is in the workplace and get their concerns, what it is that they're struggling with, and point out the things that they need to look out for when they're joining an organization.
Okay.
The challenge is when you have such forums in the universities, the people who turn up are very few.
That's true.
They're very few. So
Yeah.
majority of the students don't come because they don't see that it's a value add. The value add for them is, are they going to give us jobs? Are there jobs for us? If there are no jobs, if there's no application, why am I coming for it?
Okay.
So people don't get to see the value in such
the mindset.
discussions. Yeah.
Okay.
But there is opportunity to prepare people. Even in the
Yes, more
universities.
preparation.
Yeah.
So there's a question here. This is from Daniel Mutoko. Thank you for watching. You're saying, hello, Dan Mutoko. I have a diploma in business management. He's a graduate with a diploma in business management from St. Paul's University, and I'm looking for an internship. Where does he start?
Okay, where do you start? It's like it's understanding which are the organizations that offer internships. So read through the job boards, look through the newspaper, go to the websites. You'll find organizations that have internships that they're offering. Another place to start is the placement offices in the universities. So I know that when when I was in a recruitment role and I used to interact a lot with the universities, we'd get in touch directly with the placement offices in the university and tell them, these are the type of students that we're looking for. Can you give us 5 or 10 so that we can interview and place them? So it's very important to be in touch with your career placement office in the university. I know that is something that the Ministry of Education is looking to set up in all the universities, that we're going to have career placement offices. So that's something that is important. That is one of the avenues, because organizations can then reach out to the career placement offices in the universities and get them. That's one of the ways. Go online, talk to people that you know, network. So I think for Mutuku, it's important for him to reach out to the people that he knows.
That's true.
One point of advice that I say is, when you're looking for internship, reach out on time. I have received requests for internship a week or 2 before that internship is supposed to start.
Okay.
It's very difficult to help the individual, because at that point, probably the organizations have not planned for internships. And many organizations that have structured internships have cycles in which they do the internship. So they know that we will take interns from April to April, May, June for the 3 months and then roll over to the next set. So what happens is then, if you come in on the 3rd week of March, most likely all slots have been taken. So it's important, if you anticipate that you're going to go on internship in a certain point in your learning, then it's important to start creating those networks, start looking online, start reaching out through your friends, your family, find out where other interns have worked before. Okay. And you can be able to go to those organizations and apply for the roles. Okay. So that's how I would advise me to go to them.
Okay. Also, don't give up. Like, I know it's a lot of work, because there are people who look for internships since 2nd year and they keep looking till they get it in 3rd year.
Yeah, but it depends on how you're looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how you're looking.
Okay. So, you sort of touched on it in regards to job description.
Yes.
Should interns have a contract?
Yes, I believe there should be some form of engagement with the intern. One, you should write them a letter that specifies the terms. How long is the internship? So the internship is a 3-month internship. Just basic terms. Is there going to be any stipend that's going to be provided? In terms of confidentiality, the intern is going to have access to certain information. You need to have probably a confidentiality clause that's in the letter. Yes. And for them to actually accept, for them to also have a notice period if they need to leave, so they don't just walk out the next day. So it's important to at least have some formal arrangement that shows, because that can also be used as evidence by the intern to say that I was actually at that organization.
Okay.
Although they can also get a recommendation letter by the managers that they've worked with. And that's why it's important to also network and work well with your managers so that you can be able to get the opportunity to get the internship letter.
Okay, I hear you. Then we also touched on in the contract or any agreement you're given as an intern, there's usually a disclaimer that says an internship does not guarantee employment.
Yes.
And I'll link that to this question. I'm Chef Mbaria from Thika. Is it okay for an intern to go in with an employee mindset, or is it too risky? And then he has a very sad emoji. Has this happened? But yes, how do you go about it?
I think it's important. One, it's important to go in with an employee mindset, because you then will deliver. You come in not thinking that I'm only here for 2 months or 3 months, so I don't really care. So if you go in with a focus, I think the employee mindset means I am part of the organization.
Yes.
I add value to the organization. I'm getting value from the organization and giving value to the organization. So that's the type of mindset that you want to go with. The risky thing is where you have an intern going in and saying, because I am here, then now this translates into long term.
Yes.
It doesn't automatically translate into long term, because sometimes, like I mentioned, I have worked for an organization that ran internship programs in a cycle every 3 months.
Okay.
What it meant is that you needed to leave after the 3 months so that you can give opportunity to someone else to then come and have the same experience that you've had.
Okay.
But some interns want to say, no, I want to continue. Can you extend this for another 3 months? And that usually was a risk when we had interns who had completed their studies but were waiting to graduate or waiting to get employment. So you get that problem with an intern who's already finished. But an intern who's going back to school, it's highly unlikely that you'll get that problem.
Okay.
Although there are some who get, if there's a stipend, if they're getting paid an amount, the work life becomes so sweet, and they want to...
Yes, you don't have to look for money for airtime.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They want to continue working. And the risk with that is sometimes you find them dropping off school because you're focused on doing work. And balancing work and school is very difficult.
That's true.
It's very difficult. And if you want to put off school so that you can do an internship or for almost 1 year, it's fine if you want to take a break and you're very focused on why you're taking the break and you can go back. But it's very risky, because at the end of the day, you can end up not finishing your school.
That's
and not
true.
having the papers that you may have required.
Okay.
for that job.
So have the employee attitude, but just be ready.
Be ready, because it's a short-term thing. I mean, you're there, learn as much, create the networks, and it will be a gateway in the future. I mean, some organizations really love the attitude that comes from a specific intern, and they can go to school and tell them, when you're next on holiday, please let us know, then you can come and do the 3 months. So if you have the really great attitude, then
Yes.
that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sawa. So I was going to ask you, but you've already answered it.
Yes.
You know how you secure a spot, so make sure you remembered.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sawa. So good evening, this is Arthur, and I like the discussion. I have a question. Some internship opportunities insist that interns are to have insurance cover.
Yes.
I was going to put you on the spot. Do you have insurance cover? But yes, should they?
Yes, I think it's important. Remember, when you're taking your intern is not your employee. So there are certain benefits and certain insurances that you may have taken out as an organization that cover your employees.
Okay.
And may not have those riders for you to keep on adding, because you may add someone, you have to pay annual premiums for that. So I've seen that even in internships that are being offered even by the government, where that is a requirement that you then need to have insurance cover, because anything could happen. I worked in one organization that had an industrial setup, and we had interns coming in.
Yes.
Probabilities of you having an accident or getting injured are there, so you need to be covered. Medical cover, if you're lucky, some organizations would offer medical cover.
Okay.
Like where I work currently, we do, if those who are on attachment training, we do offer them a medical cover.
You see what I
And we
meant?
do
Be our
put them
HR.
on insurance.
Yes.
But not all organizations do that. So
Okay.
it depends on the organization. It depends on the complexity. And remember, most organizations want to give you the value as an intern. So if there's additional costs that then come up with it, then a lot of organizations will start shying away from that.
Okay.
But there is value. The Directorate of Industrial Training, the DIT, would also be able to give rebates if you're doing internships. So the government does support internships through the National Youth Employment Agency. So there are agencies that have been set up that are supporting that. So, but there are certain costs that you may need to take. It's not a lot of money to get some of those insurances.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're very affordable.
as an intern, do you ask for these benefits if they're not offered? So let's say you didn't get an agreement, you didn't get a contract. When you get sick, nobody covers you. So do you request for them, or what happens?
And that's why we said it's important to be very clear and have a letter. But when you're being engaged, I mean, ask your manager, what are the benefits that I am entitled to or not entitled to?
Okay.
When I join the organization, so that it's not automatic, because a lot of these benefits you actually do enroll for them. So there's no way you can expect to be covered on a medical cover and you've never enrolled into the medical cover.
Okay.
So it's important to have that discussion with the manager, because any intern needs to be assigned to a manager. So you don't come and then you become an intern for the whole organization. It's like you need to have a manager that you report to or someone who is guiding you.
Okay.
So that's a person that you reach out to and ask them what are the benefits that are there or not for an intern.
Sawa. Now let's cross over to something you touched on, the government supporting this program. And I was sharing with you earlier that the president said that the government has plans to absorb 100,000 graduates each year, which it's a small number, but it's a good number, into the paid internships. So we'll have the public sector, and they'll also work with the private sector.
Yes.
Will this help?
I think this would help very well, because when I'm looking at the internships, the paid internships that are being offered by the government, a lot of them are looking as long-term internships or one-year internships for people who finish school. So it gives you the opportunity to experience the workplace. I mean, we have very many government ministries where the interns can be placed. I know for a long time there has been a freeze on recruitment within the government because of the wage bill. So, but it gives you an opportunity to have that experience, real life, real work experience. So it's really a great thing that the government is doing to ensure that we're able to absorb as many people, so that they can get the experience. And the good thing is that when you're looking at the internship exposure that's been requested by the government, it's not asking for experience.
Yes.
So you're gaining the experience. A lot of time we hear a lot of people complaining that anytime I apply for jobs, they're asking for experience and I don't have the experience. But these internships then give that opportunity for them to have the experience, for them to have the exposure, to add the value. The government is going to get a lot of value from the young professionals who join them, because they have different ways in thinking. They bring the current ways of thinking to the government. So it's and if you look at it, our population is highly youth.
Yes.
So we need to take advantage of that. And it's a really good opportunity. And that skill that is developed can then go into the private sector. So it's not, one of the things that I say about internship, an organization that focuses on internship does it for the good of the country. It doesn't do it only for the good of the organization. Because imagine the graduates that you keep churning out through the internship programs are going to be able to go and add value in other organizations. So it's a very important program that the government is doing. I know some private sector organizations, like for example, the Kenya Association of Manufacturing is working with TVET institutions, that's the technical and vocational institutions, to work to get places for people who go through those institutions within the manufacturing organizations. Like, you know, manufacturing is one of the big four agenda, so it is very important for us to get these interns go in, and so that we can be able to grow the manufacturing sector.
Why didn't you do that 10 years ago?
I think things are different. You always get learning. You always get learning.
Because I'm thinking TVET goes to, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. These are the guys join the Ministry of Health. It's very easy to do it, and you get as you say, the fresh ideas. We still have a weekly for Sorrow for more time. If you have any questions, keep sending them over. I'll just go through a couple, then we'll answer them. But first, we'll listen to Jason Gray with the song Sparrows, and we'll wait for your questions. And somebody saying they're appreciating the show. Asante Sana, please write notes. If you have a son, if you're going for internship, if you're a decision maker at a company, this is the show for you. We're still the HR consultant, weekly for Sorrow, talking about interns. So we've looked at companies, we've looked at paperwork. Now let's talk about interns. Code of conduct, tafadhali. What should interns do when they go for these 3 months or sometimes 6 months internships? What do they need to do?
I think, like I importantly said earlier on, is you should have some form of contract or some form of letter that appoints to them, and it should point to the code of conduct of the organization. And the interns are employees just like any other employees. They're not, I mean, they come to work, they'll interact with employees, so you expect them to be held with the same standards as the rest of the employees.
Yes.
So I'm looking at simple things like dress code, for example. You expect the interns to adhere to the dress code of the organization. I've seen issues around that.
Yes, we've had, I was telling you about a case in radio.
Yes, I've heard of issues around the dress code, adherence. Where I personally work, we have uniforms, and sometimes we don't have adherence to the uniform policy, and a lot of this comes from those who are in attachment. Things like even the etiquette, coming to work on time, not just disappearing. I've seen interns who just disappear on you, and one day they're at work, the next day they're not at work, and come up with all sorts of excuses. I mean, it's just the etiquette to actually follow whatever procedures are there in terms of absence. You need to notify your manager, you need to notify them on time that something has come up, you're not able to come to work. So sometimes you'll find if an intern realizes that probably no one will notice if I'm there or not, they'll show up when they want and show up when they don't need to come. So it's just having the right attitude and ensuring that you're following all the rules that are there in the organization. Respect them, respect the confidentiality that is there, because you get to understand an organization, and unless you have been allowed to communicate, a lot of organizations have very clear communication policies. Who is supposed to give information about the organization? So as an intern, don't go doing that. And remember, when you're there, don't go posting all sorts of pictures and doing all sorts of things.
Don't post photos.
No, you can post, but it has to be decent. Whatever you do on social media will come to bite you. Sometimes, especially within the employment circles, because we've seen that actually happen in real life examples.
There are bosses who see their interns or new employees on social media and they panic because they think, we didn't know this about you, so there's a need to understand that difference. But do you think students make the connection between how serious an internship is and how they conduct themselves? Do they make that connection?
Unfortunately, sometimes they don't, but not all of them. So it varies. There's students who will be able to make the clear connection and can see what value it is adding, and there's others who will just do it as a tick box exercise. I need this 3 months or I can graduate. After all, I don't think I'm going to do this employment. I want to get an internship. I'm into entrepreneurship, and I want to do something totally different. So this doesn't add value to me. But then there's others who I've interacted with interns who have been amazing. Some of them, I mentor them to date. And I can tell you it's going into 10 years from the interaction that I had with them as interns, and they're very senior HR professionals at the moment. So I know the right attitude that is there in interns, and I know there's some interns who may not have the right attitude. Yes.
10 years? That means you've mentored them for throughout their career, basically. Ish, and you're not bragging. What do you make of companies that have a no intern policy? They don't offer internships, they only recruit employment, that's it.
I mean, you can't fault. Every organization has their own policies. So it's not a must that an organization offers internship. It depends on the nature of the organization. So it depends also on, like I told you, internships should not just be offered for the sake. It is work. You need to assign a manager to this intern. You need to determine what they're going to do for a certain period. You're going to engage them for a short period. Some organizations are very fast-paced and don't have that opportunity to then bring someone as an intern and within 3 months, because within 3 months you'll not have even understood what is happening in the organization, and then you're out. And then it may slow down the productivity of those workers who are there. So it's not a must that every organization offers internship, but every organization will have an entry-level position.
Okay. So it's best to have them.
So you will have entry-level positions. It's an opportunity. Like I said, having internships is not service only to your organization.
Yes.
It is to the nation.
Okay.
And ensuring that we are ensuring that those people who come from the universities are not half-baked, because you bake them when you take them through the internship and give them that opportunity.
Okay.
Yes.
Sawa. Just a couple of questions. Let's say it's a hospitality college and the uniform has a logo. Is it okay to use the uniform? Use it where? That would be the question. Off work?
Okay. I think it's important. I think we had this discussion before, to understand the dress code of the organization and what is allowable and what is not allowable.
Okay.
If the organization allows you to dress up like that and smart, and it can show that you're coming from a specific college, then that is fine.
Okay.
If the organization does not allow that, that's also not right. But the other thing that we discussed earlier on in terms of dress is that it is not expensive to dress for work. You can be smart, but it doesn't have to cost much.
That's true.
All you just need to be is neat and have probably 5 sets of clothing that you can change for the 5 days of the week.
You're a smart one. Just 5 and different shirts and blouses. Felix, you're watching. Thank you. You're saying, how do I deal with a boss that forces interns to do for them school assignment? That's very tricky. Your boss asks you to do the assignment. You're the most sober one. What do you do?
I think it's very clear. If you have that in your organization, it's good to approach the boss and tell him that you're concerned that the interns are doing work that is not going to add value to them,
yes,
and does not connect to the organization, and that interns are not for personal use.
Yeah.
So you need to be used to add value to the organization and not adding value to an individual.
To an individual.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know it is tricky. You need to pick it up with the manager.
Okay.
If you can't pick it up with the manager, pick it up with HR.
Pick it up with the Wycliffe of your company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go to HR, speak to your HR manager and raise the concern. A lot of organizations do have either speak up helplines where you can call up, and even if it's anonymously, if you don't want to be known who it is that has raised the concern, can raise it. So those type of opportunities are there in organizations, so that you can be able to tell on them in a positive way.
I was going to say, don't suffer in silence.
Exactly, don't suffer in silence. But also sometimes, even as an intern, you need to stand up and say, I'm not going to do this because I don't see what value it adds. Because sometimes if you do it the first time, it's going to be very difficult for you to say no the second time. But if you say, you know what, I think this is not something that I cannot do your school assignment.
Then it's a deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Soro. We're out of time. My director's like, wind up. Sawa. Thank you so much. This has been such good information. Remember, it's always on YouTube, so you can catch up with it if you missed a point or you need to clarify something. We'll also have a repeat tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Family TV. Don't forget to tune in with Jackson Umusi for Prayer Circle. He'll also carry you through Jam 316 in the morning. I'll see you tomorrow on radio and TV as well.